The world changes faster when someone
Thank you all
finally
for being
notices
here
what
tonight. It
everyone
means
else
the
keeps
world to
walking
us.
past.
We love
On a
you guys.
freezing December evening in downtown Nashville, Lily Carter stood beneath a flickering street lamp with a guitar hanging from a worn shoulder strap and hope balanced on a thread thinner than the winter air. The sidewalks were crowded with people rushing toward restaurants, concerts, and warm homes. Most never looked in her direction. Some dropped $1 into the open guitar case at her feet. Others barely slowed down. Lily had learned not to take it personally. People were busy. Life was busy. Dreams were easy to ignore when they belonged to someone else. She adjusted her scarf, flexed her cold fingers, and glanced down at a folded sheet of paper tucked inside her guitar case. The page was worn from being handled too many times. Across the top, written in neat handwriting, were 2 words: "Still singing." It was the title of a song she had been writing for nearly a year. Every time life disappointed her, she added another line. Every time she considered giving up, she added another verse. The song had become a diary disguised as music. Lily took a deep breath and began playing. The first notes floated into the evening air, gentle and sincere. Her voice followed a moment later,
And here's the
rich
chorus
with
again.
emotion that could never be taught in a classroom. It was the voice of someone
That's
who had
beautiful.
known
Absolutely
disappointment
beautiful.
but refused to surrender to it.
I
A
feel the
small
rhythm
crowd gathered
change.
briefly. A few people
Yeah.
recorded videos on their phones.
Maybe a little bit more
Several
soul.
smiled before continuing on their way.
I just finished
Lily
my
kept
set.
singing anyway.
It's great to relax
She always
now.
did. 3
You were
blocks away,
fantastic. That
Ryan
last song
Brooks
was really
stepped out of a
something.
black sedan after finishing another endless day of meetings. At 37,
This is
he was one of the
beautiful,
most
Ava.
successful
Did you really write
entertainment
this?
executives
Yes,
in
I did.
America.
Do you like it?
Magazines loved printing
And the
photographs of
light
him.
will guide
Industry
us
leaders competed for his
home.
attention. Investors trusted
Okay,
his
one more
instincts.
time.
Yet none of those accomplishments prevented him from
finally
feeling
home,
exhausted. His
where
driver
I
opened an
belong.
umbrella as snowflakes drifted from the dark sky. "Straight home, sir," the driver asked. Ryan glanced
needed
down
you
the
to know.
street and
I
hesitated.
do.
Thank you.
Actually,
Thank
I
you.
think I will walk a little. The driver looked surprised but
Always-
nodded. Ryan spent most of his life surrounded
you all
by
for being here
schedules,
tonight. It means the
assistants,
world to
and
us.
carefully managed
We love you
environments.
guys.
Sometimes he simply wanted to feel like a normal person moving through the city. He slipped his hands into his coat pockets and started down the sidewalk. That was when he heard the music. At first, it was just another voice among hundreds of sounds filling downtown Nashville. Then something made him stop. The voice carried a quality he rarely encountered. Not perfection, authenticity. Ryan turned toward the sound and followed it. A minute later, he reached the edge of a small crowd gathered around a young woman standing beneath a street lamp. She wore a simple coat, faded boots, and an expression of complete concentration. The world around her seemed to disappear when she sang. Ryan stood quietly at the back of the crowd. He had spent years discovering performers, musicians, and artists. He knew talent when he heard it. What surprised him was that Lily possessed something even rarer than talent. She possessed honesty. Every lyric felt lived rather than performed. Every note felt meaningful. The song ended to polite applause. A few people placed bills inside the guitar case before moving on. Lily thanked them with a grateful smile. Ryan remained where he was. Something about the scene stayed with him. Here was a woman singing in freezing weather while most people ignored her. Yet she smiled anyway. She kept performing anyway. She kept believing anyway. Lily reached down to organize the small collection of bills in her guitar case. It was not much, but it would help cover groceries for another day. She looked at the folded page containing the unfinished lyrics of Still Singing and smiled to herself. One day, she promised silently. One day someone will hear this song. Unaware that promise had already begun coming true. Across the sidewalk, Ryan glanced at his watch. He should leave. He had another meeting in the morning. Another schedule waiting for him. Yet instead of walking away, he remained there a little longer, watching the young woman with the guitar prepare for another song. Neither of them knew it yet, but a simple winter evening beneath a street lamp was about to become the beginning of a story neither could have imagined. The next morning, Nashville woke beneath gray skies and temperatures cold enough to send most people searching for extra layers. Lily Carter was already awake before sunrise. She sat at the small kitchen table she shared with her grandmother, reviewing a notebook filled with song lyrics while a cup of coffee cooled beside her. The apartment was modest but warm, and every wall carried reminders of years spent choosing determination over comfort. Framed family photographs, old concert tickets from artists she admired, handwritten notes encouraging her never to stop pursuing music. Lily turned another page and stared at the unfinished lyrics of Still Singing. The song felt close to completion, yet something was missing. Maybe confidence. Maybe experience. Maybe the belief that someone important would eventually hear it. Across town, Ryan Brooks stood inside a sleek conference room listening to executives discuss quarterly forecasts. Charts filled enormous screens. Numbers dominated every conversation. Yet despite the importance of the meeting, part of his attention remained elsewhere. He found himself remembering the young woman beneath the street lamp. The honesty in her voice. The determination in her expression. The way she continued singing even when most people barely noticed. When the meeting finally ended, Ryan glanced at his watch. He told himself he had no reason to think about her anymore. Nashville was full of talented performers. Discovering artists was practically part of his profession. Yet for some reason, Lily lingered in his thoughts longer than most. That evening, as daylight faded and temperatures dropped again, Lily returned to her usual spot downtown. She adjusted her guitar strap and prepared for another night of performing. Bills still needed to be paid. Groceries still needed to be purchased. Dreams still required patience. As she began singing, familiar faces moved through the crowd. Local workers finishing shifts. Tourists exploring the city. Couples heading toward restaurants. Then she noticed someone standing near a coffee cart across the street. The same man from the previous evening. Dark coat. Coffee cup in hand. Calm expression. He was not pretending to browse his phone or wait for someone. He was listening. Lily found the observation oddly encouraging. She continued performing, moving through a collection of songs she loved. The crowd changed throughout the evening, but every time she glanced toward the opposite sidewalk, the man remained there. Sometimes listening quietly, sometimes sipping coffee, always paying attention. Nearly an hour later, Lily finished her final song and began packing her equipment. As she reached for her guitar case, a voice spoke nearby. That was a beautiful performance. Lily looked up and saw the man standing beside her. Up close, he appeared friendly rather than intimidating. "Thank you," she said with a smile. "I appreciate that." Ryan nodded toward the guitar. "Do you perform here often?" "Most evenings. Even when it is this cold." Lily laughed softly. "The rent does not care about the weather." Ryan smiled. The answer somehow told him more about her than a long conversation might have. Fair point. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ryan gestured toward the folded page inside her guitar case. "Original music?" Lily glanced down at the lyrics sheet. "I try." "Try?" Ryan asked. "That sounds like a word people use when they are afraid to admit they are good at something." Lily laughed again. "Or when they are realistic." Ryan found himself smiling. She possessed the rare ability to remain humble without diminishing herself. "What is the song called?" he asked. Lily hesitated before answering. "Still Singing." Ryan repeated the title quietly. Somehow it fit perfectly. "I hope I get to hear it someday." Lily looked at him curiously. Most strangers complimented her voice and moved on. Very few seemed interested in the music itself. "Maybe you will," she said. Ryan glanced toward the coffee cart. "Actually, I was heading over there before you finished. Can I buy you a coffee?" Lily almost refused out of habit. Then she noticed there was nothing uncomfortable about the invitation. It felt simple, friendly, human. "Sure," she said. A few minutes later, they stood beside the cart holding steaming cups while city lights reflected across wet sidewalks. Their conversation remained light. Favorite musicians, Nashville weather, terrible parking situations. Ryan carefully avoided discussing business, while Lily never asked about careers. Strangely, neither seemed bothered by the missing details. When they finally said goodbye, Lily watched him disappear into the evening crowd. She realized she had spent the last 20 minutes smiling. Across the street, Ryan looked back once and saw her carefully placing the folded lyrics sheet inside her guitar case. For reasons he could not fully explain, he hoped he would see her again tomorrow. And judging by the warmth lingering in Lily's thoughts as she walked home through the cold Nashville night, she felt exactly the same way. Over the next several weeks, an unexpected routine quietly settled into both their lives. Every evening, just before sunset, Lily would arrive at her usual corner downtown with her guitar and her collection of handwritten songs. And almost every evening, somewhere within the crowd, Ryan would appear carrying the same coffee cup. Sometimes he arrived early. Sometimes he showed up halfway through her performance. But he always came. At first, Lily told herself she barely noticed. Then she began finding herself looking for him before each song. It was a realization she tried not to examine too closely. After all, Ryan was simply a friendly stranger who enjoyed music. Yet something about his presence felt reassuring. When she spotted him standing near the edge of the crowd, listening instead of scrolling through his phone like everyone else, her confidence seemed to grow. One Thursday evening, after finishing her final song, Lily walked toward the coffee cart and found Ryan already waiting with 2 cups. "You are becoming predictable," she said with a smile. Ryan handed her a cup. "That is disappointing. I was aiming for mysterious." Lily laughed. "Mysterious people do not buy the same coffee every day. Maybe they do if they have excellent taste." Their conversations gradually became longer. What started as a few minutes after performances turned into walks through downtown streets decorated with winter lights. They discussed favorite songs, childhood memories, embarrassing mistakes, and dreams that seemed too large to admit out loud. Ryan discovered that Lily had been writing music since she was 13. Lily learned that Ryan traveled frequently for work, but never seemed particularly excited about talking regarding his career. Whenever she asked questions, he answered politely but vaguely. Strangely, she did not mind. The conversations never felt dishonest. They simply focused on other things. One evening, snow drifted gently across the city while Lily packed her guitar after a slow night. Only a handful of people had stopped to listen. The guitar case held less money than usual. Ryan noticed her expression immediately. "Rough night?" he asked. Lily shrugged. "Part of the job." Then she smiled. "Besides, tomorrow might be better." Ryan studied her for a moment. He had spent years surrounded by ambitious people, investors, executives, celebrities. Yet very few possessed Lily's ability to remain optimistic without pretending life was easy. "You always do that," he said. "Do what?" "Find a reason to keep moving forward." Lily looked down at the sidewalk. "If I stop believing things can improve, then what is the point?" Ryan had no answer. Because deep down, he knew that simple belief was exactly what made her different. A few nights later, rain forced most performers indoors. Lily sat alone beneath a covered entrance near her usual location, quietly working on song lyrics while waiting for the weather to improve. She did not hear Ryan approach until his shadow crossed the notebook. "New song?" he asked. Lily instinctively closed the pages. "Maybe." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "That's secret." She laughed. "Not secret, just unfinished." After a brief hesitation, she handed him the notebook. "Fine, but only 1 page." Ryan opened it carefully. The handwriting was neat but filled with edits, crossed-out lines, and rewritten verses. His eyes eventually settled on the page titled "Still Singing." He began reading silently. The lyrics spoke about setbacks, resilience, hope, and refusing to quit even when nobody seemed to notice. There was nothing flashy about the song, no attempt to impress. It felt honest in the same way Lily herself felt honest. Ryan looked up slowly. "You wrote this?" Lily nodded, suddenly nervous. "It is not finished. It does not need to be finished for me to know it is special." The compliment carried more weight than she expected. Perhaps because Ryan never gave praise casually. When he admired something, he meant it. Lily looked away before he noticed how much his words affected her. Meanwhile, Ryan felt something changing inside him. Originally, he had stopped to listen because of her voice. Then he returned because of her personality. Now, watching her pursue a dream despite every obstacle, he realized his admiration had grown into something deeper, something more personal. The realization should have complicated everything. Instead, it felt inevitable. As the rain finally slowed outside, Lily carefully folded the lyrics page and slipped it back into the notebook. She had no idea that the man sitting beside her possessed the power to transform careers overnight. Ryan had no intention of revealing that truth. Not yet. Because for the first time in years, someone was allowing him to exist without titles, wealth, or expectations. And as they sat together listening to rainwater drip from rooftops while city lights reflected across wet sidewalks, neither realized that fate was already preparing the next chapter of their story. By January, Ryan's evening visits had become as familiar to Lily as the guitar she carried every day. Neither of them ever discussed the pattern directly, but it existed all the same. She expected to see him near the coffee cart. He expected to hear her voice drifting through the cold Nashville air. Somewhere along the way, those simple expectations had become the favorite part of their days. One evening, after finishing a set of songs, Lily noticed Ryan studying her notebook again. The worn pages rested on the small table between them inside a quiet cafe where they had escaped the cold. Outside, snowflakes drifted past the windows. Inside, soft music played through overhead speakers. Ryan carefully turned another page. "You have dozens of songs in here," he said. Lily smiled. "Most of them are not very good." Ryan looked up immediately. "That is not true. You have not heard most of them. I have read enough to know they matter." Lily lowered her eyes toward her coffee. Compliments from strangers were nice. Compliments from Ryan felt different. Somehow they stayed with her longer. "My grandmother says I never learned how to quit," she said. Ryan laughed softly. "That explains a lot." "Is that a criticism?" "Actually, I think it might be your greatest strength." The conversation lingered in Ryan's thoughts long after they left the cafe. Later that night, sitting alone inside his penthouse apartment overlooking downtown Nashville, he opened the notebook photograph he had discreetly taken weeks earlier with Lily's permission while helping organize some pages. One particular song caught his attention again. Still Singing. He read the lyrics carefully. Every line revealed something about who Lily was. Not just as a musician, but as a person. There was resilience in every verse. Hope in every chorus. Ryan realized he admired her for reasons that had nothing to do with music. The talent had drawn his attention. Her character kept it. The following week brought unexpected challenges. Lily arrived at her performance spot one evening to discover another performer occupying the space. The best locations downtown were competitive. Arguments occasionally happened. Most performers simply moved elsewhere. Lily did the same. She walked 3 blocks farther down the street and set up near a less crowded corner. The difference became obvious immediately. Fewer people stopped. Fewer tips landed in the guitar case. By the end of the night, disappointment weighed heavily on her shoulders. Ryan arrived just as she finished packing. "Tough evening?" he asked. Lily forced a smile. "Nothing dramatic. Just one of those days." Ryan glanced at the nearly empty guitar case. He understood more than she realized. For years he had watched talented artists struggle because opportunity rarely arrived fairly. The music industry often rewarded visibility before talent. Lily deserved both. As they walked together toward the parking area, Ryan found himself making a decision. He would help. Not by handing her money. Not by solving her problems directly. Lily would never want that. Instead, he would do what he did best. Open a door, then allow her talent to walk through it on its own. The opportunity arrived sooner than expected. 2 days later, Ryan attended a planning meeting for an upcoming emerging artist showcase sponsored by one of his entertainment companies. The event was designed to highlight unknown performers from across Tennessee. Representatives debated potential participants. Ryan listened quietly. Then a familiar thought entered his mind. Lily belonged on that stage. Not because he cared about her, because she had earned it. He spent the next several days arranging something carefully. No favoritism. No special treatment. He simply ensured that a recording submission from a street performer named Lily Carter would reach the appropriate people for evaluation. Nothing more. The decision would remain entirely theirs. Meanwhile, Lily knew nothing about any of it. She continued performing every evening. Continued writing songs. Continued believing that persistence mattered even when progress felt slow. One particularly cold night, she and Ryan sat on a bench overlooking the Cumberland River. City lights shimmered across the water. Lily pulled the folded lyrics page from her coat pocket. "I finally finished it," she said. Ryan smiled. "Still singing?" She nodded proudly. Every line. Ryan accepted the paper and began reading. The final verse spoke about standing in difficult seasons while refusing to lose faith in better days ahead. By the time he reached the last line, he felt something tighten in his chest. Not because the lyrics were sad, because they were true. Lily watched his reaction nervously. "Well," Ryan looked up slowly. "One day," he said, "a lot of people are going to hear this song." Lily laughed softly. "You sound very confident." Ryan folded the page carefully and handed it back. "Some things are easier to recognize than others." Lily smiled, unaware that somewhere behind the scenes, a door had already begun opening. And neither of them realized that the next chapter of their story was about to move far beyond the sidewalks where it began. The opportunity arrived on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when Lily was helping her grandmother organize groceries in their small apartment. Rain tapped softly against the windows while a local radio station played quietly in the background. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. At first, she ignored it. Unknown numbers usually meant advertisements or automated messages. The phone buzzed again, then a third time. Finally, she picked it up. "Hello." A professional voice answered. "May I speak with Lily Carter?" Lily glanced at her grandmother. "This is Lily. My name is Rebecca Collins. I am calling regarding the Nashville Emerging Artist Showcase." Lily frowned. The name sounded familiar. She remembered seeing a social media post about the event weeks earlier. Hundreds of performers applied every year. "Okay," she said carefully. "We received a recording submission featuring one of your original songs. After reviewing applicants, our selection committee would like to invite you to perform at the showcase next month." For several seconds, Lily could not speak. Her grandmother immediately noticed something was wrong. "Lily," she whispered. Lily raised a trembling hand while listening. The caller continued explaining details. Performance schedules, rehearsals, audience attendance, industry guests. Yet most of the information blurred together. One sentence repeated in her mind. "We would like to invite you to perform." When the call finally ended, Lily stood motionless in the middle of the kitchen. Her grandmother stared at her expectantly. "What happened?" Lily blinked several times. "I got invited." "Invited where?" "The showcase." Her grandmother's eyes widened instantly. Then both women laughed, cried, and hugged at the same time. Later that evening, Lily arrived downtown carrying more excitement than she could contain. Ryan noticed it immediately. Before she even reached her usual performance spot, he could see the smile she was trying unsuccessfully to hide. "Something happened," he said. Lily laughed. "Am I that obvious?" "Extremely." She sat beside him on a nearby bench and took a deep breath. "I got invited to perform at the Emerging Artist Showcase." Ryan acted surprised. Technically, he had not selected her himself. The committee had made the decision independently after hearing her music. Yet hearing the news still filled him with satisfaction. "That is incredible." Lily shook her head as if she still could not believe it. "I know. You earned it." The words carried genuine conviction. Lily smiled softly. "Part of me keeps waiting for someone to call back and tell me there was a mistake." Ryan laughed. "Trust me, that is not going to happen." Over the next few weeks, excitement and nervousness became constant companions. Lily spent every spare moment preparing. She practiced before breakfast. She practiced after dinner. She practiced between errands and responsibilities. The showcase represented more than a performance. It represented possibility. Meanwhile, Ryan watched her work harder than ever. Every conversation reinforced what he already knew. Lily was not hoping for success because it looked glamorous. She wanted success because she genuinely loved music. That distinction mattered. One evening, after listening to her rehearse, still singing for nearly an hour, Ryan asked a simple question. "What if everything goes well?" Lily stopped playing. "What do you mean? What if people love the song?" She thought about it carefully. "Then I keep writing." Ryan smiled. "That is your answer?" "Of course." She adjusted her guitar. The dream was never one performance. Ryan found himself admiring her even more. Most people focused on outcomes. Lily focused on purpose. A few days before the showcase, she received another surprise. An established vocal coach volunteering with the event offered a private preparation session for selected performers. Lily almost declined because she worried about the cost. Then she learned it was fully sponsored. What she did not know was that Ryan had quietly arranged additional resources through event partners without attaching his name to anything. No special treatment. No unfair advantage. Simply support. The same kind he believed every talented artist deserved. As the showcase approached, Nashville buzzed with anticipation. Local media promoted participating performers. Industry representatives confirmed attendance. Social media discussions increased daily. Yet despite all the excitement, Lily remained remarkably grounded. On the night before the event, she stood beneath the familiar street lamp where everything began. The crowd was smaller than usual. The air was cold. The city lights glowed across wet sidewalks. She finished her final song and looked down at the folded lyrics page tucked inside her guitar case. Still singing. The paper appeared worn and imperfect, much like the journey itself. Ryan stood nearby holding his usual coffee. "Nervous?" he asked. Lily smiled honestly. "Terrified." Ryan laughed. "Good. Good. It means you care." Lily considered the answer. Then she nodded. Together they looked out across the busy street. Neither realized how dramatically life was about to change. Because in less than 24 hours, Lily would step onto a stage larger than anything she had ever imagined. And the truth about the man standing beside her would begin moving steadily toward a reveal neither of them could stop. The morning of the showcase arrived with the kind of nervous energy that made every minute feel longer than it actually was. Lily woke before sunrise despite barely sleeping. Her guitar rested beside the bedroom door, already packed and ready. Across the room, the folded lyrics page for Still Singing sat on her desk exactly where she had left it the night before. For a moment, she simply stared at it. The song had followed her through difficult seasons, empty crowds, freezing sidewalks, and uncertain days. Tonight, for the first time, she would perform it on a real stage in front of an audience large enough to fill an auditorium. The thought made her stomach twist with equal parts excitement and fear. Her grandmother noticed immediately during breakfast. "You are thinking too much," she said. Lily smiled nervously. "What if I forget the lyrics?" "You wrote the lyrics. What if I make a mistake?" Her grandmother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Then you keep singing." The answer stayed with Lily for the rest of the day. By late afternoon, she arrived at the showcase venue, a modern theater located in the heart of Nashville. Everything felt bigger than she expected. The stage lights, the sound equipment, the crowds of performers moving through backstage hallways. Volunteers guided participants between rehearsal rooms, while producers reviewed schedules and technical details. Lily tried to remain calm, but her pulse refused to cooperate. Meanwhile, several floors above the main theater, Ryan sat inside a private conference room, finishing a series of meetings connected to the event. Unlike previous weeks, maintaining distance was becoming increasingly difficult. More than once he considered revealing the truth before circumstances forced it. Yet every time he imagined the conversation, uncertainty stopped him. The friendship they built meant too much to risk carelessly. He wanted Lily to succeed because of her talent, not because of his influence. As evening approached, audience members began filling the theater. Industry professionals occupied reserved sections near the front. Journalists prepared cameras. Talent scouts reviewed performer information packets. Backstage, Lily stood alone for a moment near a side curtain and peeked toward the audience. The sight nearly stole her breath. Hundreds of seats stretched across the room. More people than she had ever performed for in her life. Her hands tightened around her guitar case. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "You look like someone preparing for battle." Lily turned and immediately smiled. Ryan stood there holding 2 cups of coffee. "You came." Ryan laughed softly. "Did you really think I would miss this?" She accepted the coffee gratefully. The simple gesture calmed her more than she expected. For several minutes, they stood together near the curtain while performers moved around them. Finally, Lily looked at him and admitted the truth. "I am terrified." Ryan nodded. "Good." She rolled her eyes. "You keep saying that. Because it means this matters." He pointed toward the stage. "Everyone out there wants to hear something real. You already know how to give them that." Lily looked down at the coffee cup. Somehow his confidence felt more reassuring than any rehearsal. A stage manager called her name. "Performance time." Instantly, her heartbeat accelerated again. Ryan noticed. "Lily." She looked up. "What?" Ryan smiled. "Remember who you are when you sing." Those words followed her all the way to the stage entrance. Seconds later, bright lights flooded her vision as she stepped into view of the audience. Applause greeted her politely. Not enthusiastic, not dismissive, simply curious. Lily adjusted the microphone and looked across the crowd. Then she spotted Ryan standing near the back of the auditorium. The sight steadied her. She took a deep breath and began playing. The first song went well. The second went even better. By the time she introduced Still Singing, the audience had become completely attentive. Silence filled the room as the opening chords echoed through the theater. Lily closed her eyes and sang. Every setback, every dream, every difficult moment, every reason she refused to quit, it all lived inside the lyrics. For 4 minutes, nothing else existed. Not the audience, not the judges, not the pressure, only the song. When the final note faded, silence lingered briefly before the entire theater erupted into applause. People rose from their seats. Several judges exchanged impressed looks. Journalists scribbled notes. Backstage staff smiled openly. Lily stood frozen beneath the lights, struggling to process what had happened. Across the auditorium, Ryan applauded with everyone else. Yet unlike the rest of the audience, he was not surprised. He had known from the beginning. The woman singing beneath the spotlight belonged there. What neither of them realized was that the success of the performance had already set something much larger in motion. Because before the night ended, Lily would discover that the man who believed in her from the very beginning was hiding a truth far bigger than she ever imagined. The applause followed Lily long after she left the stage. Even backstage, people continued stopping her to offer compliments, congratulations, and encouragement. Some introduced themselves as local producers. Others represented talent agencies, recording studios, or industry organizations. The attention felt surreal. Just 24 hours earlier, she had been performing beneath a street lamp, hoping strangers might pause for a few minutes. Now professionals wanted business cards, contact information, and future meetings. Lily smiled politely through it all, but part of her still struggled to believe any of it was real. Eventually, she slipped away from the crowd and stepped into a quiet hallway to catch her breath. Her phone vibrated repeatedly with messages from friends, family members, and people who had watched the performance online. The showcase organizers had streamed portions of the event, and clips of still singing were already spreading across social media. Lily stared at the screen in disbelief. Then she noticed a message from Ryan. "You were incredible." A smile immediately appeared. Somehow those 3 words mattered more than all the others combined. She typed a quick response and slipped the phone back into her pocket. A few minutes later, an event coordinator approached. "Lily, there is a private reception upstairs for performers and sponsors. You are invited." Lily hesitated. Large networking events usually made her uncomfortable. Yet tonight seemed different. Everything seemed different. "Sure," she said. "I will come." Upstairs, the reception occupied an elegant ballroom overlooking downtown Nashville. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed city lights stretching across the skyline. Industry executives, sponsors, journalists, and performers mingled throughout the room. Lily immediately felt underdressed despite wearing her nicest outfit. She grabbed a glass of sparkling water and quietly moved toward the edge of the room. Then something caught her attention. At the far end of the ballroom stood an enormous digital display featuring photographs of keynote guests and major sponsors connected to the showcase. Names and biographies rotated across the screen every few moments. Lily barely noticed at first. Then she froze. The image currently displayed filled the entire screen. Her heart seemed to stop. Ryan Brooks, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Brooks Entertainment Group. The photograph showed the same man she knew from coffee conversations and evening walks. The same man who listened to her songs in freezing weather. The same man who stood beside her backstage only hours earlier. Around the image appeared details about one of the most influential entertainment companies in America. Multiple record labels, television productions, artist development programs, national recognition, industry leadership awards. Lily stared at the screen, unable to move. No, that was impossible. Her eyes returned to the photograph, then to the name, then back again. 1,000 conversations suddenly replayed inside her mind. His vague answers about work, the frequent travel, the confidence, the industry knowledge he always seemed to possess, the showcase invitation, the coaching opportunity, the encouragement. Suddenly, everything looked different. Before she could fully process the revelation, movement near the ballroom entrance drew her attention. Ryan had arrived. The room changed immediately. Executives approached him. Sponsors greeted him. Organizers thanked him. Industry leaders shook his hand. People clearly recognized him, respected him, deferred to him. Lily felt the air leave her lungs. For months, she believed Ryan was simply a thoughtful man who enjoyed music. Now she was watching one of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry walk across the room. Ryan smiled politely while greeting guests. Then his eyes found Lily. Instantly, his expression changed. He followed her gaze toward the giant display screen. Understanding appeared immediately. He knew. Lily knew. For a brief moment, neither moved. The noise of the ballroom seemed distant. Finally, Ryan excused himself from a conversation and walked toward her. "Lily," he said quietly. She looked at him. Really looked at him. The familiar face had not changed. Yet everything felt different. "Ryan Brooks?" she asked softly. He nodded. "Yes." Lily laughed once in disbelief. Not because anything was funny. Because she did not know what else to do. You own Brooks Entertainment? Yes. The Brooks Entertainment? Another nod. Around them, conversations continued normally. Yet for Lily, the world had narrowed to a single moment. How long, she asked. Ryan knew exactly what she meant. From the beginning. The answer hurt more than she expected. Not because of the money. Not because of the success. Because of the omission. You never told me. Ryan looked genuinely regretful. I know. Lily glanced toward the giant screen again. Then back at him. Suddenly, dozens of mysteries made perfect sense. And standing in the middle of a crowded ballroom filled with music industry leaders, she realized the man who had believed in her before anyone else was carrying a secret larger than she ever imagined. The question now was not who Ryan really was. The question was why he never told her. Ryan led Lily away from the crowded ballroom and into a quiet terrace overlooking the Nashville skyline. The city lights stretched endlessly beneath the night sky, but neither of them paid much attention to the view. Too many unanswered questions stood between them. For several moments, silence settled over the terrace. Lily folded her arms and stared toward the city. She was not angry because Ryan was wealthy. She was upset because the person she trusted most had hidden such an enormous part of his life. Finally, she broke the silence. How many people in that room know exactly who you are? Ryan looked toward the ballroom windows. All of them. Lily nodded slowly. And I was the only one who did not. The words carried disappointment rather than accusation. Somehow that made them harder to hear. Ryan took a breath. I never wanted you to find out this way. Lily laughed softly. Then how did you expect me to find out? He did not answer immediately because the truth was uncomfortable. There had never been a perfect plan. The longer he waited, the harder it became. Eventually Lily looked at him again. Why? Ryan met her eyes. Because from the moment you started talking to me, you treated me like a normal person. Lily frowned. You are a normal person. Ryan smiled sadly. Most people disagree. The answer surprised her. Ryan stepped closer to the railing overlooking the city. When people learn who I am, something changes. Sometimes they become impressed. Sometimes they become nervous. Sometimes they start seeing opportunities instead of a person. He glanced toward her. You never did. Lily listened quietly. You listened to my songs before you knew anything about my company. You challenged my opinions. You laughed at my terrible jokes. You never cared about titles. He paused. For the first time in years, someone liked spending time with me without knowing what I could offer. The honesty in his voice made it difficult to stay upset. Yet another question remained. Did you help me get into the showcase? Ryan answered immediately. No. Lily looked skeptical. Ryan continued. I made sure your submission reached the right people. After that, the judges made every decision themselves. Lily considered his answer carefully. Somehow it felt exactly like something he would do. Open a door, not carry her through it. Ryan continued speaking before she could respond. Lily, if your music was not extraordinary, none of this would have happened. The certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. You earned every opportunity. The city breeze moved gently across the terrace. For the first time since discovering the truth, Lily began seeing the situation differently. Ryan had never offered money, never tried to impress her, never used his influence to control her choices. If anything, he spent months avoiding advantages that could have made things easier. You stood in the cold listening to me sing, she said quietly. Ryan smiled. Many times. You bought the same coffee every night. Also true. You read unfinished lyrics that nobody else cared about. My favorite part. Despite everything, Lily found herself smiling. Ryan noticed immediately. Relief appeared in his expression. There is something else you should know, he said. What? Ryan hesitated for the first time all evening. Then he reached into his jacket and unfolded a familiar sheet of paper. Lily recognized it instantly. The original handwritten version of Still Singing. Her eyes widened. You kept that? Ryan nodded. Since the first night you showed it to me. Lily stared at the worn page. The paper contained crossed-out lyrics, corrections, and notes written during difficult months. It represented far more than a song. It represented persistence. Why would you carry that around? She asked softly. Ryan looked directly at her. Because it reminds me what courage looks like. The answer hit harder than any grand speech could have. Suddenly Lily understood something important. Ryan had never fallen in love with an idea. He admired the person she already was. Not because she needed saving. Not because she was talented. Because she refused to quit. Tears gathered in her eyes before she could stop them. Ryan immediately looked concerned. "Lily, I am sorry for not telling you sooner." She shook her head gently. "I think I understand now." Ryan waited. "You wanted someone to see you before they saw everything else." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ryan nodded. Exactly. The tension that had followed them throughout the evening finally began to dissolve. Below them, Nashville continued glowing beneath the night sky. Above them, stars appeared between drifting clouds. Lily looked at the folded lyrics page in Ryan's hands and laughed softly. "You know, this is still a little unbelievable." Ryan smiled. "The billionaire part. The standing in freezing weather every night part." He laughed. "Fair enough." For the first time since entering the ballroom, everything felt familiar again. The titles, money, and headlines suddenly seemed less important than the conversations, walks, and shared dreams that came before them. Because beneath the success, Ryan was still the same man who listened when nobody else stopped to listen. And standing together on a quiet terrace overlooking Nashville, both of them sensed that their story was only beginning. 1 year later, the lights inside Bridgestone Arena illuminated a crowd larger than anything Lily Carter had once believed possible. Thousands of people filled the seats. Fans held signs bearing the names of songs they loved. Cameras moved across the audience while music echoed through the enormous venue. Backstage, Lily stood quietly beside a dressing room mirror, adjusting the strap of her guitar. Despite everything that had changed, she still carried the same folded lyrics page she had written during difficult nights beneath a Nashville street lamp. The paper was older now. The edges were worn, but she kept it with her everywhere. It reminded her where the journey began. Outside, the audience cheered as the announcer introduced the final performance of the evening. Lily smiled and took a slow breath. 12 months earlier, she had worried whether anyone would stop and listen. Now thousands already knew every word. Success had arrived faster than she expected after the showcase. Still Singing became the breakout song nobody saw coming. Streaming numbers exploded. Radio stations added it to playlists across the country. Interviews followed. Concert invitations followed after that. Through every opportunity, Lily remained exactly who she had always been. She wrote honestly. She worked hard. She never forgot the people who believed in her before the world noticed. One of those people stood waiting near the side of the stage. Ryan Brooks smiled as she approached. These days, nobody hid who he was. There were no secrets left between them. The reveal that once threatened their relationship had ultimately strengthened it. Because once the truth was out, they discovered something important. The foundation of their connection had never been wealth, status, or opportunity. It had always been trust. Ryan glanced at the guitar. "Ready?" Lily laughed softly. "As ready as I was that night at the showcase." "That terrified?" "Possibly more." Ryan smiled. "You always say that before every major performance. And somehow you always seem surprised." Before Ryan could answer, the stage manager signaled that it was time. The audience roared beyond the curtain. Lily took one final breath and stepped forward. Moments later, bright lights flooded the stage as she walked into view. The applause was immediate. Thousands of voices filled the arena. Yet standing there, guitar in hand, Lily remembered another audience. A handful of strangers on a cold sidewalk. A man holding a coffee cup near the edge of the crowd. A dream that seemed impossibly distant. She smiled. Then she began playing. The opening chords of Still Singing echoed through the arena. Instantly, the crowd recognized the song. Some people sang along. Others held up phone lights. Lily's voice carried across the venue with confidence she once struggled to find. Every lyric felt different now. The words no longer described surviving difficult days. They celebrated overcoming them. The song had grown alongside her. By the time she reached the final chorus, much of the audience was singing with her. Thousands of voices joined together beneath the lights. It was the kind of moment artists spend entire careers hoping to experience. And somehow, it belonged to the girl who once performed beneath a street lamp. When the final note ended, the applause seemed endless. Lily stood smiling while emotion filled her chest. Then she noticed movement near the front of the stage. Ryan was walking toward her. The crowd immediately reacted with curiosity. Many people already knew their story. Media interviews and public appearances had made sure of that. Yet nobody seemed prepared for what happened next. Ryan accepted a microphone and looked up at Lily. For a moment, he appeared surprisingly nervous. The audience quieted. Lily laughed softly. You are nervous. Ryan nodded. A little. The crowd laughed with them. Ryan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something folded. Lily recognized it instantly. The original lyrics page. Still singing. Her eyes widened. You kept it all this time? Ryan smiled. Every day. The arena screens displayed the page for the audience. Crossed out words. Handwritten corrections. Dreams written long before success arrived. Ryan looked at the paper before meeting Lily's eyes again. The first time I heard you sing, almost nobody stopped to listen. The audience grew silent. But I remember thinking that eventually the world would catch up. Emotion filled Lily's eyes. Ryan continued. You taught me that perseverance matters. That talent matters. That kindness matters. He paused. Most importantly, you taught me what it feels like to admire someone completely. Then Ryan lowered himself onto one knee. The arena erupted instantly. Cheers filled the building. Lily covered her mouth as tears appeared. Ryan smiled up at her. Lily Carter, you were still singing when nobody was listening. You were still believing when nobody was watching. And you became the best part of my life long before anyone knew your name. The crowd held its collective breath. Will you marry me? Lily laughed through tears. The answer came without hesitation. Yes. The arena exploded with applause. Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger while thousands celebrated around them. Above them, giant screens displayed the worn lyrics page that started everything. The song, the dream, the journey, the love story. And as the crowd continued cheering beneath the lights of a sold-out arena, Lily realized something beautiful. She had achieved every dream she once wrote about on a folded piece of paper. Yet the greatest reward was not the success. It was finding the one person who listened before anyone else did.